everyone, today we're going to make a super simple website, your very first HTML website, just from writing a few lines of code. This is going to be a super simple intro to designing websites in this way, or programming, I guess, websites this way. But this is the absolute introductory base level of HTML, and that's all we're going to talk about today is just a few lines of HTML that'll help get you started in organizing your content for the website design you're working on. So we are going to use Dreamweaver today. There are several code writing pieces of software out there, and so you're welcome to use what you like. We are just writing lines of code, so we're not using any visual editors in order to move around elements or anything like that. We are going to use Dreamweaver just because I'm a Creative Suite user. It's what I kind of grew up designing websites in. But that said, we're not going to use the visual aspects of Dreamweaver. We're just going to use it as a code writing tool. So all that said, make sure that you get your Dreamweaver software from your Adobe Creative Cloud subscription, and make sure everything's installed correctly. Once you open up Dreamweaver, it's going to look like this, and we just simply want to go to File, New, and your new document window looks like this, and we do want a document type HTML. By selecting HTML here, Dreamweaver is going to write a couple lines of code for us, a couple of those really key pieces that our website is going to depend on. So it's going to put in a few of those very simple introductory lines of code for us. And let's see, on the right side here, we don't actually need to change anything here. It's really just a simple, straightforward HTML document. So I'm going to click Create. And your window might look like this, but your window also might look something like this. Or it potentially might look like this, but I doubt it. But just know at the very top of your screen here, you have your three main views. And this can be nice in Dreamweaver. I always use the code view. In Dreamweaver, this is a pretty good code writing software where it's going to color code some of your different tags, and it's going to give you some options as you're writing code that's going to help you create these phrases that are going to become your website. So just know up here at the top, we have those different views. Let's work in code view. We are going to preview our website, but we're going to do it in a little bit of a different way. But all that said, your document might look like this, and let's look at the code that Dreamweaver has just given us. What it starts with here in line 1 is an exclamation mark. You can see we have our starting tags here, and so we are using those little caret arrows. That's what HTML is looking for. Everything that we write is going to be dependent on these little characters. So make sure you know where you are getting those on your keyboard. And just to look again at this first line of code, basically this is saying, alert, this document type is HTML. That's all it's saying in this first line of code. It's just going, alert, alert, this is HTML. And then the second line of code says HTML starts here. This is the starting tag, and you can see if I just click it once, Dreamweaver is going to highlight the end tag, and that's where the organization in Dreamweaver starts to be helpful. So HTML starts here in line 2, and then HTML ends at the very, very end of our document. So this tag needs to stay at the very bottom of all of your code moving forward. So just to keep diving into these different sections here, after HTML starts, then this section called head starts. Within the head, there's some very important information. The head is an area of your website that doesn't actually appear visually on your site. And so it's giving us a couple things here. It's telling us the character set. You don't have to worry too much about that. Basically giving us instructions on how to read this language. And then this one is a little bit important. You need your page title. Your page title lives in the head of your HTML document. And so it doesn't actually visually appear until you start to notice in your browser tabs. That is actually where the page title is going to show up. So whatever you put right here is going to be the page title in the browser tab, or if you go to bookmark this site later, that's what's going to automatically populate. This is a very important section of your website. You can actually add a little bit of SEO, search engine optimization, using this, add in some keywords or something really important beyond just what the basic part of the title is. So I might say my test website, and then I'm gonna add an extra character, and I'm gonna say something like this. Okay. And then for now, we're just going to end the head. We're not going to actually populate the head too much today. But just know that this is where some of that CSS is going to live later, and that will make more sense later on. But for now, let's let the head live there. And then continuing down this list, you see in line 8 here, it says body starts. And then right after it, you see body ends. So Dreamweaver put these in. This is the most important, well, I just said the heads was the most important section of the website, and it really is, because it has all the like information, all the guts of the website lives in the head. But the body is important because this is what's actually going to visually appear on your website. So within body, you are going to start adding the content of your website. From here, you are going to start to need to, you're going to start needing to code a little bit here. So I'm going to give you a few key HTML tools just to start getting in some of the really basic text information on this website. The first one we're going to start with here, we're going to start with what's called an H1 tag. And so I started H1 here. You saw as I typed the caret H1 and I ended this start tag here, Dreamweaver automatically populated the end tag. So between these two tags is where my H1 means headline 1. So my largest, most prominent headline on this website is going to live right here. I'm going to say a very important headline. Underneath that, I'm going to add an H2. So it is the second tier of information on this website. And in this, I'm going to say a rather important subhead. So already, just like that, I'm able to start organizing the parts and pieces of this website. The last one I'm going to add here, I'm going to use my caret again, and you can see this is again why I kind of like Dreamweaver, as I type that caret in, Dreamweaver populates this list of all the possible commands I might be trying at that point. And so sometimes, especially later on, that's going to become helpful because it's going to be able to fill in some of this code for you. Right now, I know I'm just going to use my P tag, which means paragraph. So this P tag is going to include any of that basic body text of the website. And let's see. I'm just going to type something like that, and just for visuals here, I'm going to copy this and make it into a paragraph of text. So now I have a paragraph here. It's indicated here. It starts with my start tag with P, and then my content just lives in here, and you can see Dreamweaver turns that text white, which means it's going to show up on my website there. And then it ends with the P tag here. And remember to use the backslash in the right direction here. It's the one with the, if you're on a US keyboard, it's the one with the question mark down near the shift button on your keyboard. So make sure you're always starting and ending your tag. If this tag starts and this tag doesn't have this, you have not ended this section. And so, oops, I'm just going to fly around. You have not ended this paragraph. And so whatever continues after this will continue to be considered paragraph. We have to end our tags with that slash line. So now I have a headline, a subhead, I have a paragraph, and I'm just going to add one more useful bit of information here. I'm going to use what's called an unordered list. So I'm going to start my tag. I'm going to type, oh, you see U, UL is the tag for unordered list, and unordered just means that it's going to be bullet points rather than numerals. If you would like an ordered list, you can put in a tag for ordered list right here. But in my unordered list, and you can see I'm going to add some spaces here. Spaces don't matter in HTML. If you hit return and you're going down line by line, HTML code is never going to read that. It just basically doesn't exist. So while it's helpful in our coding program here to kind of visually organize things for ourselves, the coder, because I entered all those lines right there, that's not actually going to show up in my site. I need to tell it to do something like that. But visually, just so that I can organize what's happening here, I started my unordered list here in line 12, and in line 13, I'm going to give myself a list item, which is LI, and list item, I'm just going to say thing 1. I'm going to go down, and you can see Dreamweaver automatically ended that list item for me. I'm gonna say thing 2. And one last list item here, I'm gonna say thing 3. Then it looks as if this might work. And of course, there's probably some typo somewhere. So as soon as I do this and preview it for you in just a few minutes, you're gonna see like, oh, well, this didn't work. And then we're gonna troubleshoot it. But that's the beauty of HTML, is that one little tiny thing can, a typo or a wrong character in the wrong place or something like that, it can kind of throw you off for a second, but as soon as you find it and you fix it, you feel like a genius, because it's just like problem solving all the time. So this in itself is a big creative challenge, a big design challenge. So if you're having trouble, if something I wrote here didn't work, and we're gonna find out in a few minutes, hopefully I've kept it simple enough that it does work right off the bat here, but we're just gonna troubleshoot it. That's kind of the way that this design process goes. So hang in there with me if we run into any problems here. But so far we've got headlines, we've got a paragraph, I have a very simple unordered list. Again, just for my organization, I'm gonna tighten up those lines there, and I'll give myself some more space before the body ends, just so that anywhere in this space I can continue adding code, no problem. So the biggest problem I have with my document right now is that I haven't saved it, and that's just a mortal sin here in design land, but definitely web design land. You gotta save this stuff. So we're gonna go ahead and save, and what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go ahead and do a save as here, just to make sure that I have a nice clean copy. And what we're gonna do, I'm gonna go to my desktop here, and I'm gonna create a new folder. This is essential. You must do this step. Create a brand new folder, nice and clean. It could be within another file, that's okay. It doesn't matter where it is on your computer. But make sure that you are creating a new folder here, and you're going to name it public_HTML. It is imperative that you use that exact phrase, that exact spelling, the underscore in the right place. Use this formatting, okay? That is a number one golden rule. It must be called public HTML. You're gonna click create, and then we're gonna save this file as index.html. Again, it must be spelled just like that. It must be all lowercase. It has to look exactly like that, and it must live within public HTML folder, okay? So now I've got HTML, I've got index.html here, my public folder is set up, and I'm just going to click save here, and you can see now that my document is saved in Dreamweaver. I think I'm about ready to preview this, and so what I would like to do to preview this, we're going to go to that public HTML folder on the computer. I'm going to right click this, and I'm going to open it with Google Chrome. And you can see, just by opening it with Google Chrome, the first thing I actually want you to notice is the address bar up here. It's not online. Okay, we have not uploaded this to any sort of web server. It is just living on our computer, and you can see that up here in this address bar. But then underneath in the body of the page content here, you can see that my very important headline is showing up the largest. My very rather important subhead is just below that, a little bit smaller. And then I use that paragraph tag to create one big long body of text. And then my unordered list worked just fine and popped in here with those bullet points. So just to start out with here, I have already been able to program and very simply design this website. A few things to note about the visual design here that we're going to start to address once we get to that CSS phase. We're going to address all the visuals of this website by using CSS. But just some things to notice before we get to that point is that HTML is automatically doing a few things for us. You can see we have black text on a white background. You can see that it is set in this typeface, and that's about it. Times, I think, is what it typically defaults to here. It's actually going to be defaulting to a system font, I believe, so yours might look a tiny bit different than mine. But you can also notice here on the very left edge, HTML has actually given us the tiniest, slimmest of little margins here. And that's actually pretty significant. We gotta remember that as we start playing with those margins and playing with the layout and organization of the page once it's more fully developed. But just note that now. You can also see it has added a bullet point style, a default bullet point style, and those are inset just a little bit with a little bit of spacing there that is not aligned specifically with that paragraph. It's indented just the tiniest bit there. So those are a few things to note just to get started with this HTML coding. Go ahead and try this out. Try to make just the most basic HTML site that you can. Play with these sections a little bit and see what you can come up with. Right now, you are focused on populating the site with content. That's actually the most important thing to do right now. If you are adding content as you're coding, it's going to get really confusing, and your code, you're going to have to end up rewriting certain things. You're going to end up having to troubleshoot certain things. The best way to approach website design is to have all the content up front, ready to go and ready to organize and put where it needs to go. It's a lot easier to program content than to try to create content that fits into the programming, if that makes sense. So right now, your biggest job is actually to be developing what's going into this site. What's the text? What are the images? Maybe some cool GIFs that you need to create in Photoshop. What is going on this site that's going to be of interest for your users? So right now, you can go ahead and start organizing all that content. Maybe even use that public HTML folder. You could create an images folder there, just using _images. And you'll be able to start developing that website from there. So I think I'm going to leave this HTML intro here for now. There is one more very important concept that I think we're going to start touching on very soon, but it has to do with the organization of all this content. Right now, all we've done so far is we've created this body and we've just thrown all the content into the body. So it's one big, long website and it's just a bunch of stuff in the middle. It's not actually organized into sections of the website. That's the step we're going to do next. If you're curious about it, we're going to use the div tag. It is like the most common tag you'll ever see, and it can be a little confusing at first, but it really, again, it goes back to the organization. We're going to start creating sections of content. So as you're collecting your content that you want on your site and you start envisioning what this website's going to look like, start thinking about it in that organization. What are the sections that are going to flow down your page? What are the sections on the interior pages? Start thinking in that way, and then we can go from there when it comes to actually coding the thing. The other next step we're going to do is we're going to start diving into a little bit of CSS. And I know you're excited about that because that's the really visual kind of fun aspect of it. But step one is collecting content and actually envisioning what your site is. Step two is going to be collecting that content and programming it using your HTML code. Step three is going to be applying those CSS styles and making it really pretty and fun to look at. Okay, so go ahead and start with this. Go ahead, just get a practice website going and see how it works. Preview it in Chrome or Firefox. I'd recommend not previewing things in Safari or Internet Explorer. Even though we're making really simple sites right now, it's just a bad habit to get into. I think typically industry standard, people typically are troubleshooting things in Firefox and Chrome, but everything should also work at the end of the day in any web browser. That's really the biggest trick. But for our purposes, we're going to worry about Chrome and Firefox, and we'll just go from there. I hope this was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions at all. I'd be happy to help you get through any of these challenges. This is learning a language. You are learning a new language with HTML. So I know that can be a little intimidating. It can be a little confusing at first because you're not sure what you're looking at or what you're reading. But essentially, it's just like learning a language. We have to learn a little bit of the vocabulary, but we've got some dictionaries built in here, so we don't have to know the whole vocabulary. We do need to understand a little bit of the punctuation, right? And a little of the grammar. So we need to understand the order that things need to to appear in. And we need to understand things like our punctuation being something like ending a tag, like ending a sentence with a period. Super, super important in our coding. Anyway, I hope this was helpful. Again, let me know if you have questions, and we'll keep going from here when it comes to designing these websites. Thanks.